Welcome to CARICOMP Insider, where high-tech facial recognition meets real-world intelligence.
About a third of workers say they'd happily swap their badge for a fingerprint or a face scan. Meanwhile, the United States has no federal law that specifically governs how employers collect, store, or destroy that biometric data. Workers are ready. The rules aren't. If you've ever swiped a badge at work, pressed a thumb to a sensor, or looked into a camera to clock in, this story is about you. And if you haven't yet, odds are you will soon. According to multiple workforce surveys, roughly 2 out of 3 U.S. employers already collect some form of biometric data from their employees. Fingerprints, facial geometry, iris scans. At the same time, only a handful of states have passed laws that specifically tell employers what they can and can't do with that information. That's the story, not whether workers want biometrics, but what happens when employers roll them out without the legal and policy infrastructure to back them up. So what fills that gap between adoption and accountability? Start with the numbers, because they tell you everything. Roughly 6 in 10 organizations have already built biometric identification into their badge and access systems. That's not a pilot program, that's mainstream. But only about 1 in 5 employees say they actually know whether their employer tracks them online or collects biometric information. Let that sit for a second. The majority of companies are collecting this data, and the vast majority of workers have no idea it's happening or how it's being used. That disconnect matters because biometric data isn't like a password. You can reset a password. You can't reset your fingerprint. You can't get a new face. Once that data is compromised, it's compromised permanently. Now, some states have tried to get ahead of this. Illinois passed its Biometric Information Privacy Act, known as BIPA, and it remains the strictest biometric law in the country. Under BIPA, every single violation carries a $1,000 penalty. If the violation is intentional or reckless, that jumps to $5,000 per violation. And those numbers add up fast when you're talking about an employer scanning hundreds or thousands of workers every day without proper notice. In 2021, one class action settlement under BIPA reached $650 million. $650 million. Texas and Washington have their own biometric protections too, but they don't carry the same private right of action that makes BIPA so powerful for employees. What about the other 47 states? For most American workers, there's no specific biometric privacy statute protecting them at all. That means an employer in most of the country can install a facial recognition clock-in system tomorrow and face almost no legal obligation to tell you how long they'll keep your face print, who they'll share it with, or when they'll delete it. And there's a trust problem hiding inside the adoption numbers. Surveys show that roughly 8 out of 10 workers trust their employer to handle biometric data responsibly. That sounds reassuring, until you realize that trust is built on almost no information. Most employees don't know what's being collected, let alone how it's stored. That trust isn't informed. It's assumed. And assumed trust collapses the moment someone finds out they were never told. There's a human cost that goes beyond legal liability too. Research into workplace surveillance found that employees in heavily monitored environments report stress levels that are significantly higher. Nearly 45% of those workers describe high stress, compared to about 28% in less monitored settings. That's not a small difference. For compliance teams, that's a retention problem. For the person walking through a turnstile every morning while a camera maps their face, it's just the feeling that someone is always watching. The real bottleneck isn't the technology. Most organizations that deploy biometrics don't have written policies defining how long they keep the data, when they destroy it, or what secondary uses are permitted. BIPA requires exactly those things: a retention schedule, destruction guidelines, clear written consent. Under European GDPR frameworks, the power imbalance between employer and employee means consent alone isn't even considered a reliable legal basis for processing biometric data. An employee who's told "scan your face or you can't enter the building" isn't really choosing freely. That's coercion wearing the costume of consent. Many employers treat employee enthusiasm for biometrics as a green light. Willingness to use the technology is not the same thing as legal clearance to deploy it. And as more states draft their own biometric laws, organizations that moved fast without governance structures are discovering the rules can change underneath them, retroactively. So 1/3 of workers want biometric access. 2/3 of employers are already collecting the data. And almost none of them operate under a specific federal law telling them how to handle it. The gap between what companies deploy and what the law requires is where lawsuits, broken trust, and real harm live. Paivan. Whether you manage a security program or you're just the person pressing your thumb to a reader every morning, your biometric data is uniquely yours. And right now, the rules protecting it depend almost entirely on which state you happen to work in. The full story's in the description if you want the deep dive.
Now you know something most people in this industry don't. Use it. And when you're ready to put it to work, caracomp.com. We'll see you tomorrow.